Welcome to the Shun Podcast, a special 50th episode. I can't really believe that I've already done 50 of these. You know, these aren't short 15-minute or half-hour podcasts. These are usually at least 2 hours or so of, people being open and honest about their lives. So, these 50 could easily equate to a couple hundred episodes of some podcasts with all the time that's been put in. But this is part of the special 10 episodes that I'm releasing this month. I'm not going to spend a lot of time up front. My wife is actually going to sign off the episode at the end, but I'll let you know up front who you're going to get to hear from. I reached out to everybody from 2017 and 2018, and these are the people that followed through with the update. So I'm going to put the updates in the order in which each person appeared on the show, with the exception of my wife, Jenny, from episode 1, and then me, my story being This JW Life. We're going to wrap it up as I interview my wife, and then she's going to interview me. So to kick things off, we're going to have David from episodes 6 through 9, then Sydney from 16, Tora from 18, V from 21, and we're going to end with Jenny from episode 1 and me from This JW Life and hosting this podcast. Oh, and the transition is a little girl named Jocelyn who was clapping from the Pasta Fest episode of number 17. I had it in there as a transition, and I thought it'd be a fun transition to put in this one as well. So let's just go ahead and jump in. So I'm here with David from episodes 6 through 9, all the way back, starting in February of 2018 was episode 6. It's been a long time. So David, how'd you feel after you told your story and listened back to it?
Well, it was liberating. I remember feeling like I was just free, like I got it out there for all the people who I knew were like looking in at my life. I could say, whatever, if you want to know anything, here's this thing. And I was kind of thinking it not like it was a statement or a manifesto, but I just felt like everyone was curious, and yet nobody knew the real thing. They just had the slant of whatever the faithful witnesses were saying about me.
Yeah.
And then that was like part of the motivation. However, once I told it to another person, I mean, there were so many things that I just took away thinking, holy cow, that helped me way more than anything like posting something for the world to see and save to them. And I remember like even, and this is going to sound so dumb, but the truth is, even when I told you in the interview about how I had struggled with masturbation, and you said like, oh, like every brother, and I thought, and I kind of knew that,
Yeah,
and without that talking about it, It just was so foreign and not normal. And to hear you just openly be that cool about it. And then I thought, well, he obviously talks to other people too, so this isn't something he hasn't heard. And it really was like, I don't know, just a lot of salve for my wounds that I had kind of, even when you're out, you still make yourself feel guilty for the things that you do or who you've been in the past and what type of witness you were, good witness or bad witness. Because I always felt I was a good witness, even though I was an envelope pusher. I was sincere in my belief, but I always liked to find as much of the boundaries and certain things, and that my guilt always told me that meant I was a bad witness. But I envy some of the people that can just like walk away and not care or not think about being a witness. And the good news is I'm getting there. Like I once in a while will get fired up about a little thing or something, but I feel so, I don't know, I've just moved beyond so much. It's nice to not think about it anymore. It was really normalizing, and I got to feel more normal.
Yeah, and then you get distance from it because,
yes,
one of the reasons that you feel abnormal, you feel this guilt or shame or whatever that about things, but once you see that, yeah, you're just a person like everybody else, and it is freeing to know that you're not alone. So many of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses did to us, the rules or the ways that they presented things made you feel shame for things, and then when you feel shame, you feel alone. And so just hearing that other people go through the same things, it's just life.
Yeah,
and they're great
to hear. No, it's just great to hear that sort of stuff.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because they make the normal abnormal. That's what they try to do. They try to they take normal human experiences and try to make them seem abnormal. So, for yourself, obviously your episode involves multiple episodes, also the YouTube video from when you went into the Kingdom Hall. Did the episodes coming out, did they help you reconnect to anybody from your past, or did anything unexpected maybe come of it?
Yeah, a little bit. There were some folks who reached out. Obviously, they can't, and I won't give any identities away, sure. But there was some folks who reached out that just wanted to say, I've had questions, or geez, I never knew, Dave. Like, I'm sorry that you had to go through that sort of thing. And we're just very sincere. There were some people who, one person even confided that they were going to listen and were totally expecting over-the-top, dramatic kind of really, yellowing up the journalism of it, slanting the storyline. Mm-hmm. And then they said, and then I listened, and I was kind of like, yeah, that's how I remember it too. And that made me feel really good.
Yeah, that's validating.
Yeah, people who were just around on the periphery of my situation, but close enough and familiar enough to have seen that. And there's a few things in there, I got caught up after the video is almost a whole separate thing, yeah. But in the episode itself, there was a lot of people who didn't know me because I was just a little 12-year-old boy back when the murder had happened, but they I listened to your episode, they were just listening to these things anyway, or they saw my video and then went and found the episodes, and they're like, I remember, I did know you because at that time I was so-and-so's and I'd come visit the hall and there was this big murder that had, and so that was a thing that removed a lot of the anonymity, is people I did know you, I knew your family, and God, I never knew it was that way. So it was kind of people I barely remember kind of came out of the woodwork and at least said hi and a few, how you doing, check in with me now and again type stuff, and told me some of their situations. And it's just interesting how, I don't know, pennies rolling around in a drawer, they all bump back to close sometime here and there.
Wow, I've never heard that analogy. I like that. It is interesting how people, I hear this a lot from people that after they tell their story, people start coming out of the woodwork sometimes that they haven't seen in years, or that maybe, like you said, were just on the periphery. They were these maybe people at a Kingdom Hall that were in a different age bracket or something that they didn't really know very well, but that knew them a little bit more, or, had seen them. And then they get this new understanding of who that person is and what they went through. And it's really amazing to see people connect over this stuff.
Mm-hmm. And there was, I got a few different vibes from different ones. There were some who, Pimo, and there were some who were just questioning or curious. And there were some who were pretty diehard in their faith, but at least wanted me to let me know that, well, thanks for sharing that part of your story. I never knew that, but they were not deconverted or anything. Nothing convinced them. Their story is their own, and it'll take something different to speak to them. So,
yeah. But even just the fact that somebody who's still in it would listen to your story. Hey, you never know what seeds are planted in somebody, and they may break free from it someday. You just don't know. So I just like knowing, honestly, that there are people who are still in who listen, because it could someday help somebody, and I would love that. Would love to hear somebody who listened and said, I just listened because, I knew David growing up, and now here I am. I've woken up and found freedom and happiness, and it would be lovely to hear something like that came from somebody's episode.
It was quite interesting. So yeah, I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
And then Go ahead.
I was just say I hear that a lot where, other people might listen to your story or someone's and wake up that never knew you, but to have somebody that knew you wake up because of that would be really cool.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and not for nothing, but your story did that for me a lot too. I thought, man, like, I remember listening to it just because I had started to hear enough things from that one book with Anthony James that there's something wrong with my religion, but I still don't know who can you trust for like of these apostates and all the people I thought were so evil.
Yeah.
But I remember when you did like you told your story, and I know everybody's got a story, and so it's almost easy to dispel someone's story
Right.
until you hear something that resonates. And for me, it was, I think, your suicide episode where you opened it not about yourself, but with the please call this number this last weekend, this Chester Bennington, I think, from Lincoln Park. And I thought, man, this guy, like, there's something here that's just more genuine than someone who's angry and just going after anyone with a flamethrower. This guy, there was a caring to it that right away kind of said, all right, I'm listening, and he cares about fellow humans and the world more than just smearing the name. This isn't like a smear campaign. He wants to help. That's why he's telling his story. And I was in for the rest of it, and I knew it at that point. So
thank you. And I think everybody loves a sincere story, that's all I've ever tried to be or do is sincere in all this. And I'm glad to hear, I'm glad to know that it helps people. And I don't want this just to be something to smear people. Unfortunately, there are a lot of good people caught up in bad things sometimes. In things that aren't super healthy for them. And I want to see those people get help someday to break free. So now, go ahead.
No, just totally.
So you've been out now for a little bit. February of 2018 is when the episode occurred, but I think we talked before this. It was December, when we actually recorded of 2017. So you're talking, it's been 2 years. What has changed in your life since the episodes came out? Anything big happened since then? Learning any new lessons? How's life maybe been different for you?
Well, for me, I think the big things are what I'm capable of now. It just feels like I've been given just new leeway. I can do so much in my work, in my business. It's like, and sometimes I probably get a bit hyper focused or obsessed even with like, work, but it feels good to, just to make money, not feel guilty. And like, I don't have to, there's no donating to any other cause, or like you're embarrassed if you're having a well-off month because, Christ was poor or any of that. Like, it's very freeing to just carve out a life for yourself thinking this might be the only one I have. And so I like that a lot. And then I like the freeness of the mind to enjoy that, as well as the freeness of all my time to actually employ that. I can work past certain hours on Wednesday nights, which would be meeting night or all that. And it feels great to just carve out my life. That's been huge. Relationally, I like my kids are getting older now, and so they're understanding more, and they've had a few Christmases and birthdays and different things under my belt, and at least I've removed some of the fear from it. That's big in my life, is that they aren't afraid. They just realize, oh, this is what you do here, this is what you do there, and it's less of a battleground maybe between me and the ex over the kids or whatever. I believe the lines are as firmly drawn as ever, but there's less contention with the distance, for whatever that worth. It's like,
a lack of contention is a beautiful thing in any way,
Yeah, who knew? But that's been, for just my relationship with the way I operate in the world is a lot different. And I've been listening to a lot of other like podcasts and things, and if some Bible topic comes up, And I was like, oh, and it like scratches at the back of my memory, but it's the distance has helped so much. I love how much I'm forgetting. Like I'll remember what a verse says, but I don't remember which one it was. Or
Yeah.
do you remember what this scripture is? I'm thinking, God, no, my fingers could probably flip to it really quick still, but don't know, don't care. It's not coming back. It's just faintly familiar. And I feel like the more I'm forgetting, it's just shedding off layers and leaving behind all the stuff I didn't want anyway.
Man, I love that. I've begun to forget certain things too, and that's a really good feeling, isn't it?
It is. It's so happy to
Yes.
like not know what a certain scripture says. It's like, oh, I don't know why I relish it so much, but it's been great to know that my mind, because you worry about that when you're fresh out, like I was
Yep.
2 years ago talking to you. Will it ever go away? Will the guilt, will these feelings, but even the knowledge, like you just eventually start clearing out old clutter to put in new, healthier ways of and ideas of thinking. And that's some of the stuff that just has to go. And it's like, oh, it's working. I didn't even realize it, but I'm moving on, I'm moving away from it.
Yeah. So let me ask you, have you, since you've been able to have some time freedom since, or at least, your time is your own now. Um, have you gotten into anything fun, anything new recreationally in any way, hobbies or anything like that?
It's
Or
a
just
little
been
bit
able
of
to do more of what you enjoy?
a little bit more of what I enjoy. Well, actually, most of my free time, I've just kind of, yeah, maybe I'm not even proud of this, but I filled a lot of it with work. I've just been working like a madman, and I don't know, trying to get myself in a position where that security is there, and you only get one prime in life. I used mine getting good at window washing, so
Right.
I want to make it pay me before I'm done,
Right.
and then you start to think, I've been getting into biking again just a little bit lately here, which is nice because cycling is something I really loved. I've been doing more with my stepkids a lot. We do like Dungeons and Dragons and video games and kind of less of my own personal pursuits maybe, and more just like things that they might be interested in. Or
Yeah.
I've done some D&D, and that's fun. And you clear a day. We've done some good road trips, lots of travel. We went out to the West Coast this last year, and then I also went out to Wyoming, Independence Rock with my two boys, and we did a trip. Even would have been that was 2017, I think. Yeah, I had already been to the Grand Canyon, I think, by the time I talked to you last time. But
Oh, gotcha.
still, I got a sweet love. I got a sweet love for road trips and different things like that. That I used to always, you know, you just where are you gonna find the time? And when you
Yeah.
find the time, how much do we pack? Do I bring a suit? What if we go to a hall there? Like, and I like just going, and traveling is fun. Like road trips, I like a lot. So
Yeah. Fun where you can just be present and enjoy what
yeah,
you've got.
hmm
Yeah, that's a beautiful
I,
thing.
yeah.
So let me ask you, is there anything you'd like to say that I haven't asked about? Anything that you'd like to share with anybody or words of
Um,
wisdom or anything?
um, God, I don't know. I mean, I remember once you had said something about it. Right now, it's good to be an ex Jehovah's Witness better than it was to be a Jehovah's Witness.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually, the dream is to one day be an ex Jehovah's
Mm-hmm.
Witness, where you don't have to be defined by what you formerly were. You can be totally free and moving on.
Yep.
And I feel that that is actually something on the horizon for me. I don't know when it will happen, and I almost feel guilty for not being as involved in the group as I am sometimes, but I just feel like not that I'm beyond all of it, but I've come so far
Yeah.
that I don't think about some of the stuff anymore. And, you shrug your shoulders, roll your eyes, and well, I guess that's just how the witnesses are. And it doesn't, it's like they can't touch me anymore. Is that they've lost a lot of the strings that were once attached.
That is
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I think that is the dream, and I love knowing that you're getting there, and you know, the group, like the Facebook group will always be inhabited by new people who are leaving, and
Sure. Yes.
will need help and support, and there will be people, and have been already, people who move on because they found the support they needed, and they're just happy with their life, and they can just move on into that. And I think that's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing. That's what I want for everybody. I want to see everybody be able to get beyond this at some point and just go be happy.
Yeah, I think, and I felt like a super, super broken person. And it's fixable. I'm only 2 years away, and I was pretty fresh out then even. It's a rough process. And once you're through it, though, the other side is definitely, like I know online I've used the analogy before of the hammer in the forge. You go in, you get heated, you get pounded, but you're reshaped through that process too. Something different comes out of the same iron, the same metal that you're made of is there. It's just different. And then that's accepting the process of being through the forge, I guess.
Yeah. It's not always pleasant to go
No.
through the process. And it can be a very difficult process. But, I think one of the things that has probably helped you, just my observation, you went through it. You didn't try to avoid it. And
No.
you went through it, and sometimes the only way around is through. You have to go through a thing. It may not be pleasant, you may not want to, but you can either run away from it and never, it's, I think I've talked about this actually in the group, as it's the buffaloes and the cows in Colorado or something. It's like when a storm is blowing through from west to east, the buffalo run toward the storm, and by doing so they get through it faster. As it passes, it's going across them, and they're going across it, and they limit their exposure. It hurts, it's probably not still fun for the buffalo to be in the storm, but they get through it. The cows, on the other hand, run from the storm, and what that does is that prolongs their exposure to it. And good for you for running through it, for doing so, and hopefully that's helped speed your process of recovery in some way.
Yeah, and I've had a pretty good support system with yourself. The group, Missy, of course, has been the biggest support in my life, just kind of being there. And I took some therapy as well, and had a lot of things, witness related or otherwise, that are just part of my programming that you look at and you think, that's an ugly thing I want rooted out, and you talk about it, and then you just realize you're not as crazy as you think sometimes, or your pain is normal and natural responses to some of the things. And so you feel like, okay, well, this has been helpful. And there's been a lot of, I guess, whether it's therapy or like Missy and the kids and the support I have at home, and then just others actually who went through the similar situations. It's been, I got my family too, my brothers and sisters there, they all, talk to me. So we're not terribly close, but we're closer than we were for years and years. So there's a lot of good, and relationship wise, to kind of, I don't know, blossom maybe, like to become what I'm going to, but I still feel like some of those petals are unfurling and opening up.
Yeah. I mean, life is a process of growth, right? I mean, if you don't, it would be a shame to not grow and to find yourself in the same place year after year. So good for you for pushing forward to growth. And I appreciate you sharing some of that with me today. I mean, this is where you are 2 years removed. Look ahead, 5, 10, 20 years. Where's David's gonna be? I mean, obviously I'm not asking you to predict that, but I'm just saying that, that's a beautiful thought. You've grown this much in a short time. Who knows what's next, That's awesome.
Yeah, I definitely want to just take a moment and say thank you to all the people who have shared their stories as well.
Yeah.
I mean, even the most recent episode with Cassie, there's always some nugget in there that I relate to, and it means a lot just to have others keep telling their stories, keep sharing, and I love my favorites. Actually, I've been some of the different experiences though too. Brenda and Tora and Jerry, like the groups that are so similar. Just like two cousins that look like they're brothers almost sometimes. And you think this is so eerie, and I love hearing that because it's like they all have the same playbook at certain times. And like when Cassie's episode, she talked about getting baptized and feeling nothing. People told me like you will have the Holy Spirit come on you, and your life will never be the same on the other side of that water. And I was too scared to tell anyone else that it felt exactly the same but a little wetter. I thought this is like, I mean, I don't want to say vacant, but I don't know if maybe sometimes my mind builds things up too much, and I was expecting, will I secretly see a dove that no one else does? Or I have no idea. Maybe the water would feel like it was carbonated on my skin, bubbling, or there was supposed to be something, and it was just coming up, and I just thought, no Holy Spirit yet. Okay, maybe it comes in at a little bit later. I have no idea, but that she felt that just nope, no, like kind of empty, vacant. Like it was just,
You went in a pool and got dunked underwater.
Yeah.
And then you got out and you were wet and you had to go dry off and put dress clothes on.
And it's during the lunch hour too.
Yes.
Everyone's just like patting you on the back after your baptism. So how do you feel? Are you any different? And I wanted to look around and just like to people I was eating with and everybody and just be like, well, you didn't feel it either, right? But you're too scared because what if I am the only one that felt it vacant? Maybe Jehovah knows my baptism isn't in my heart, and that's if I 4 out of 5 feel something warm and fuzzy, and I got none of that. What does that say about me? So you just don't sit on it. But I remember looking around the courtyard, and I'm just thinking, all these people milling about, and they're happy for me. But dude, if they knew how just hollow it felt, it was just.
Well, I mean, and how old were you?
I was 18, actually. I did a good thing, and I pleased a lot of my friends and parents, and I was on the right track. But I felt for myself, there was no relationship with the higher being and power and Holy Spirit that I had thought there would be.
Yeah, I always struggled with that too. Yeah, I couldn't. I felt like, well, yeah, I could feel something, but I'd have to kind of make it up. like I'd have to make myself feel it because I really wanted to that bad. I don't think I could have done it naturally. But now you get to live a life where you can feel your feelings, not feel shame about them, enjoy the things around you that you want to enjoy, pick those things. You don't have the prescribed path to go down. And the bad news is that means that you're responsible for your own life now. But the good news is that you're responsible for your own life now. You can do what you want. So, it's all up to you. So I really appreciate you sharing all this. And I hope that you just continue to grow as a person and who knows, maybe we'll do another update 5 years down the line and see where David is then.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Thank you so much, Michael. I appreciate all your work and activism, and thanks for anyone I've ever talked to, whether they're part of the group or not. Just people in the I've thrown my problems on so many people, workers, like clients I work for. I mean, and just the amount of strength you get from telling your story and having someone just listen to you in any aspect, is immeasurable. So thanks again for being such a listening ear and keep fighting the good fight, I guess.
All right, so Sydney, I'm here with Sydney from episode 16 all the way back on September the 1st of 2018. So it's been over a year and a couple months already. Time flies. So Sydney, how did you feel after you told your story and listened back to it?
It's funny. I think I listened back on mine at least 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like the reason was I couldn't remember all the things that I said. And then every time I listened to it, I was like, oh man, I should have included this or that. And so then I would just re-listen to it again. And I was just telling my friend, she was here a couple minutes ago and she left, and I was like, can you believe it's been almost a year and a half since I did that interview? She's like, are you kidding me? She's like, time is weird how it goes by, because it doesn't feel like it's been a year and a half since I did that interview. I know it came out, obviously later than when I actually did it.
Right.
But I shared it with everybody I felt would listen to it, and some of the people that were a part of that story, and it was very therapeutic for me. I listen to your episodes a lot, but there are big spans of time where I don't listen to it because I felt such a big burden lift off my shoulders. I have to be like in the right mindset to listen to other people's stories sometimes.
Sure.
Because it comes back and it's like I feel those feelings again. But since I've told the story and since my episode came out, I don't feel the need to talk about it all the time. I don't feel the need to rehash those things in my mind as much, which it's been my husband, I think, is grateful that I did it, because he doesn't really know what it was like, or he can't really imagine what it was like. And I think it's made him feel better that I don't want to talk to him about it all the time.
Yeah, you feel freer.
Yeah. It's been really helpful. I love that you are doing what you're doing. So,
well, thank you. And I love that it helps people, to feel free, because, that's the power of story, being able to own it instead of having it own you. So, you owned it, you told it, you expressed it, and then you've even listened back to it. So did it give you a little bit of a little different perspective, actually listening back to your story and having it, come out of your own mouth, basically?
Yeah, I felt oddly validated in listening to myself say it, and not just having a conversation with somebody, but actually listening to myself say all of the things that happened was very validating, in that I wasn't exaggerating, or I wasn't, I guess, being too sensitive or whatever about my situation. And so many people had a lot of the same experiences. So I felt validated just listening to myself say it. And I even had sent it to, I'm not friends with him, but I even sent it to my ex-husband, because I was like, I think you should listen to this, only because, our relationship, there were a lot of things that were bad in it, but I apologized to him for my part.
Yeah.
And the things that were bad about our relationship. And he was so kind to me about it. And he just said, don't worry about it. I understand why you did what you did, and your story is worth listening to.
Nice.
And that was the end of the conversation. But it felt good for him to say that to me, even though we're not friends anymore and I don't need to be validated by him. I just was glad that he perceived it well, because our relationship ended very badly, I feel like.
Yeah, it's nice to
so
have a little
nice.
healthier or a little nicer closure, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think he hated me, afterwards for a long time. And so I guess it was just nice to be able to be like, here's my apology, and this is why I did what I did, and not just, oh, I'm sorry I was this way, because there were a lot of things in our relationship that he did that was bad too.
Sure.
But it feels good to be able to apologize to somebody for the things that that you did.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a really big relief point for me, specifically because my parents, my dad and my stepmom, who are still active and stuff, they are constantly telling me that I need to apologize to them for the things that I did at that time. And I'm like, I constantly tell them, and my brother, because my brother and I started talking again, which has been really nice. We don't really talk about religion or anything in the past. We kind of just keep it at present, and tell each other that we love each other. But they always constantly wanted me to apologize, and I'm like, I'm not going to apologize for the things that I did as a child, as a minor. as a teenager who is lashing out just like every other teenager does, I will not apologize for that. But I will apologize to the people that I hurt along the way, other than my parents. And maybe that's selfish or bullheaded of me, but I feel like as parents, you need to expect that your children are going to do things like that, because I'm pretty sure they did it to their parents at some point. So
yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're talking about things you did as a kid. If a parent is still holding that against you, then that parent has a problem. It's time to move on and you would think that the parent could be a bigger person than that. So, so you mentioned that you got back in touch and have been speaking with your brother some. Are there any other people that maybe this helped you to reconnect with, or did any other, maybe unexpected things come from telling your story?
Well, my brother and I, that was kind of a recent development, and it's been really nice. But I think the only other thing was one of my friends that I had mentioned in my episode. Her cousin is a J-dub, but one of her children has come out as gay, and she has decided that she no longer wants to go. And it's been really hard for her, I think, because of the type of relationship she has with her family. And to hear that she left and that she's doing well, and that she's moved on and somewhat happy now that she's out, that was really nice. And the only reason I heard about it was because of my friend. It's her cousin, and I kind of got in touch with her, and I told her how happy I was that she was doing well, and she just had a baby not too long ago, and I made her a baby blanket and like a little car seat blanket and stuff, and sent it to her just to let her know that she's not alone. And it's somebody that she knew that went through similar things, so that was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I hate that another person is facing shunning, but I'm glad that you could be there for her. So what about you and your life, since that came out, or since, let's just say, we spoke a year and a half ago? Has anything big changed for you just in your life, or any lessons you've learned since then?
Yeah, my husband was deployed in May, the end of May of this year. And so he's not going to be back until March of next year at some point. So I've been here alone with my kids, and my mom and stepdad, they're here helping me out until basically my husband comes home. So it's been stressful and wonderful at the same time, because it's allowed me to start a business with my best friend. And I think also talking to my brother, he had mentioned that he had started his own business, and he's only 19 and he's doing pretty well. And I said, that's impressive. I was really proud of him for doing that. And I had wanted to start this business for a long time. I just never really had the guts to do it, or felt like, well, I can't do it now because my kids are not in school, or I can't do it now because I can't finance it, or whatever. And my friend and I, we just laughed so much, because we just did our first show a couple weeks ago, and we have a crafting business. And so we went to our first craft fair a couple weeks ago, and we did pretty good. We made $300 profit. Nice. And we have another one this weekend, and we have another one next week. And we just laugh because we're like, we literally pulled this out of our butts in about 6 weeks. So, we've like branded ourselves. We've got all the stuff to be legit, and it's exciting. It's stressful, but I feel like it's a good stress. It's not, and I feel like I'm able to think about my future more and not dwell on the past, like I honestly feel like it definitely helped me in that aspect for sure. I don't dwell on stuff as much anymore. I don't get depressed about it as much anymore. So it's been nice.
That's awesome. And you mentioned your new business, so go ahead, throw it out. What's your website?
It's MN, like as in Nancy, M, craftingstudios.com. It stands for Marshall and Moore, because I'm Sydney Marshall and she's Ariel Moore. And so we got the website and the Facebook and the, all the stuff.
And what kind of thing do you make?
We're just getting started, so.
What do you make?
We make headbands, hats, scarves, accessories, and then we do like home decor. Like right now I've been busting out some really cool excuse me, Christmas ornaments, and my mom calls them primitive art, and I was like, okay. But anyway, they're these like really cute snowmen, and just home decor. But we can do literally anything that anybody would want. They would just have to custom order something, but we crochet and knit.
Yeah, that's awesome. So mnmcraftingstudios.com. I'll make sure and share that, because good for you. These are the types of things that you want to see people do. We all have to move on and have a life after Watchtower at some point, and to find things that light us up and make us happy, and that we can invest ourselves in, that are actually good for us. So good for you for doing that.
Thank you. I feel like it's nice to do something that you not only love, but you feel is important.
Yep. And
not have to be Bible related.
Yeah.
Like there are other things that are important in people's lives, and you don't really think about that when you're in it. You're just kind of like, I go do my job. I do the daily grind. I volunteer, at the Kingdom Hall, and I do all of these other things for people, in the Kingdom Hall. But you're not allowed to have like this wonderful nurtured individualism of things that you want to or like to do.
Wow, wonderful nurtured individualism.
Nice.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I like that. Wonderful nurtured and individualism. That's something that that is definitely not seen in the cult, and is something that we all need. Have to find ourselves.
Because I swear I work from sun up to sundown almost every day, whether it's taking care of my kids, my house, or my business. And there's no way I could be a Jehovah's Witness right now. Like I'm pioneering at my house with my crochet.
Yeah, I understand. Believe me, I understand.
So it's funny.
Yeah. So is there anything that you'd like to say to just the people out there? Anything you've learned, anything that you'd like to say that I haven't particularly asked you about? This is your update. You can say what you want.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody that listened to my episode, and I thank everybody that comes to you for help to tell their story, to help other people. I thank you for doing what you're doing, and I hope that other people could open their minds and their hearts to listening to other people's stories, to kind of knock down the stereotypes or the things that they've heard that they think they know about the Kingdom Hall. They don't. Yeah. It's better to hear it from the horse's mouth. These people that come out that are scarred or whatever, those are the people that are going to tell you the truth about what happened, not people who are sympathizers to the J-Dubs or J-Dubs themselves. And I've had a couple people that, they really like Jehovah's Witnesses, and they've heard my story and they're like, wow, I didn't know that's what it was like, or I didn't know they believed that, so I just really hope that other people will listen.
Well, thank you, Sydney. I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate you, telling your story. And now, for a second time, actually coming back and updating, and I'm glad to see that telling your story helped you, and that you've also been able to move on some in some ways. I think that's a beautiful thing and what we all want. All right, so I'm here with Tora Bontrager of episode 18, all the way back September the 15th of 2018. So it's been a little while since we did the original interview, and doing a little update today. So I've just got a couple quick questions for you. I appreciated having you on because you were able to give a perspective from the Amish community that helps people in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community or others who listen to see that they're not alone either. You know, we all share so much in these experiences. So, you know, that episode was a year and a few months ago. Anything big happened since then? Anything change in your life? Learn any new lessons?
Oh yeah. So that was that inaugural conference last year in September. That was the first year, it was actually the official public launch of the nonprofit, the Amish Heritage Foundation. So it's now a little over a year from then, and I am blown away by the things that we've been able to accomplish in that short period of a time, considering all with no funding really and no staff, volunteer run, and just people paying out of pocket or living off of savings. And some massive inroads have been made among the Amish inside the church, to help sexual assault survivors, specifically is one of the big projects. And then also to overturn Wisconsin versus Yoder, which is this Supreme Court case that denies Amish children an education beyond the 8th grade. But then, of course, it set the precedent that anyone else from any other group can also deny their children. And so now we've completed our second annual conference at Columbia several weeks ago at Columbia University, my alma mater. It was a huge deal for me. I mean, this is an Ivy League university. I don't know anyone else from the Amish who's graduated from an Ivy League. You know, I know no other escapee from no other Amish escapee from an Ivy League university, and to be able to have had the conference there, to have, you know, like it's just, it wasn't endorsed by Columbia, but we had to get their approval to hold a conference there. So, you know, that's amazing.
Sure. Yeah. That's great. And to have these things in academic institutions like that for a bunch of people who often aren't allowed into academia. That's a beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah. And the keynote speaker, Michael Rebell, is a Columbia professor, and he's an attorney at the Columbia Law School and a professor at Teachers College, which is one of Columbia's schools. And yeah, so it was just amazing. And then we did have JW. We had a woman talk on one of the panels, and yeah, it was the same format again, but more the focus was on let's get Yoder overturned. So that was the theme, was overturning Yoder. And we are going to look at what happens with Rebell's case, Professor Rebell's case against the state of Rhode Island. That should be decided before the spring semester is over. So whether he wins or loses, we can learn in terms of strategy on how to approach Yoder. So this is really, really exciting. We've done enough work. We found ideal plaintiffs, which is huge, the ideal plaintiffs to start the proceedings, to be able to file. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so much that I don't know what to say.
Well, and I know you mentioned just briefly making some inroads into the Amish community to help out with sexual assault victims. So what kind of work are you doing there?
So we are talking to the women to encourage them to report the perpetrators. And of course, that it causes a huge backlash. But there's definitely a significant percentage of the women, like a big enough percentage to make a difference, even though not, of course, the majority. But there's a contingent of Amish women inside the church who have no intentions nor desire to leave the church. They want to stay inside the church. They don't want to lose everything the only thing they've had their whole lives. They don't want to lose their families and friends and all of that. They just want the abuses to stop. And they've come around to seeing how sexual abuse has affected them. These are grandmothers who have finally seen these are the ramifications of sexual assault. This is how it affects you your whole life. You're a 65-year-old grandmother sitting there and still afraid of your father who assaulted you. And they are starting to speak out internally, and have and they express that to me as well. And they want the perps to be reported. But the problem is that we have a lot of work cut out for us in terms of how to protect the women. Because if the women report, they get threatened by the clergy to be excommunicated. So that's something that we're trying to work on and mitigate. And we have a strategy for that, but I can't go public with it.
Sure, that's okay.
So really, just in short, I'm trying to think of how to talk about this without revealing our strategy.
Sure. But it's beautiful that this exists and that people are that. And what I mean by this, the internal, I don't know if uprising is a term I should use, but just the energy behind, hey, let's get this taken care of. And you would think that any religious group would want to get abusers and predators out of their organization or dealt with secularly. You would think that would be the case.
But we know it's not.
It's not.
Yeah, because those in power, the abusers are always, by definition, you have to be in a position of power to be able to abuse. I mean, that's just, that's just how that works. Yep. So if anybody listening to this can get their head wrapped around this. I mean, it is necessary to be in a position of power in order to abuse. If you're not in a position of power, you can't abuse. You don't have that power. So this is not, a happy thing for any of the perpetrators to hear about, that, the women are actually fed up and they want to report. So the problem is, how do you get, also within a patriarchal setup where no woman has any rights, like the men have all the rights. So now you have to find the good men versus the bad ones and try to get
allies
to get the good men to speak up. Well, the good men are generally the ones who, they're also in a pecking order. If you really want children to be safe and you don't want the abuses to happen, if you voice that, the ones in power who are the abusers, they're going to shut you down. So how do you? So kind of like the situation that we're working on is, how do we empower not only the women but also the good men to stand up to the bad men?
Oh yeah, because people often equate patriarchy with all men winning, and that's not the case. Yeah, the ones at the top win. Mm-hmm. And so when you can get them to be your allies, the good men, that would absolutely be something. I'm just encouraged to hear that there are people on the inside that are speaking out. It's a start, It's something that as a former Jehovah's Witness, I would love to see people on the inside start speaking up for their kids, or for themselves even, when it comes to these matters. But again, like you said, power dynamics, people don't want to lose everything they have. It's a very difficult thing. But I think it's beautiful that, good for you and for those who are stepping up, for speaking out to whatever extent, and for trying to do something here, because that's the only way anything's going to happen. Nothing happens if everybody just sits by,
Yeah. And it's also, this is what a lack of education produces. It nurtures an environment for abuse.
Yeah.
It creates that opportunity. And so if you grow up in a system like that, whether it's JWs or the Amish, you don't even know what your rights are as a U.S. citizen. You're not, I don't know how the JW mentality is, but for us Amish, we're Amish. First and foremost, we're not U.S. citizens. We're Amish.
Oh yeah, we were Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah,
we didn't even like the government.
Right, like there's no concept of I'm an American citizen.
Yeah.
And so I also don't know what my rights are. I don't know that I actually have the right to be protected, that I have the right to not be beaten, that I have the right to not be assaulted. And so how can you change things from inside when you are deprived educationally and deprived of that awareness and knowledge of what you do have the right to, or what your and even let me think about it in terms of, even if you don't know what your rights are as a U.S. citizen, you also don't even know who you are sexually, and how to draw the line between unwelcome advances and genuine contact physically.
Right.
Because that's also not there, and that's purely religious driven to deprive you of a sex ed education. And that also ties into this whole culture of abuse. So that's something that for women, the women inside the Amish who are speaking out, who have voiced their support that perpetrators need to be reported and go to jail, these are women who don't have anything left to lose anymore. That's kind of what it is. The ones who are younger, they're still in that mindset of, if I speak out, I will lose everything. But the grandmothers, they don't have children anymore at home, and they're nearing the end of their life. And in the Amish, death is a welcome thing. It's not a feared thing.
Right.
So what do you have left to lose? Nothing. And I mean, thankfully they're seeing that, because somebody has to start from the inside voicing these concerns, right?
Absolutely.
But I just wanted to kind of like go back and say it is this fear about, there's so much at stake for losing. You have so much, that you can lose, because you are contained in an environment by design that will not let you grow or live without that environment.
Yep. I completely understand. But I am glad that there is at least some movement in that area. So just a final question. Is there anything you'd like to say that I haven't asked about? Is there anything that you'd like to tell people, or anything that's happened, anything you've learned that you'd just like to share?
Yeah. I would love for everybody to know that nobody in the U.S., no U.S. citizen has a right to an education in the eyes of the federal government.
Yep.
So most people think you do, and you don't. And so if anybody would like to help change that, we have a petition, amishheritage.org/petition, that you can sign, which would be great. And so it's just a way for us to gather signatures, and we can't get the case. The thing with getting a Supreme Court case overturned is that we have to gather public support to get the Supreme Court to even say yes to hearing our case. So it's really a huge job ahead of us. But it all boils down to, it affects everybody. It's not just an Amish issue. Our plan is to overturn Yoder and also simultaneously establish that people have a right to an education. And so if anybody's interested in that and supports that, that's what the petition is for.
Yeah, and we should have some because, in Jehovah's Witnesses organization, higher education is especially discouraged. But when we're just talking about the basics, just K through 12, how many people now are homeschooling their kids in programs that aren't even accredited and that really don't even produce a diploma that's worth anything. And we have so many people who are having to go get GEDs at most, if even that, because education, not only is it not necessarily a right in the eyes of the federal government, but among Jehovah's Witnesses, it's a waste of time. And that's just a horrible attitude.
I know. And it's so sad. I mean, I'm just sort of like letting it sink in what you said. Education is a waste of time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is the world is the Titanic, they likes to say. It's sinking. So why would you spend any more time than you have to on it? And that would include an education, because an education is a means to an end, and the world's going to end any day now. And so you don't need an education. In fact, we don't even need doctors or lawyers in this new paradise system we're going to walk into, because no one will be sick and we'll all be perfect and be happy. So there's no need for lawyers. So, just learn a construction trade at best, clean something, whatever the case may be. But there's no use in education or investing into your mind.
That is just...
That's sad, isn't it?
It is just, I don't have it's beyond sad. It's just, beyond sad. And that's the same attitude as we Amish have. Education is not it is. Education beyond the 8th grade is a waste of time. But it's more, it's framed more, I don't think that I've ever really thought of it as in that way, in the way that you say the JWs look at it, because for us, it's an issue of pride, arrogance. Like, who are you to go and learn for the sake of learning and asking questions? That's like a sign of not being submissive and
too big for your britches.
Yes.
Who are you to think that your mind is worth expanding?
Exactly. Like, who are you to think that you should know more than?
We've taught you all you need to know. You don't need to learn anything more.
Yeah, exactly. And yet we have such a huge inferiority complex when it comes to education, or when it comes to intellect. We want to be seen as being smart. It is just crazy. It's really sad when I think about it. Like, we're told that we don't need an education beyond the 8th grade. We're forbidden to have it. But all our lives we strive to be seen as smart.
Yeah, that only makes sense, because you're going to be defensive about something like that, which, I get. A lot of that in our community as well. And it's a shame that people are robbed of the opportunity, and that the world at large is robbed of the opportunity, because there's an opportunity cost here for everybody that's being lost, where nobody is winning in this, other than the people in power, the group itself that gets to keep you in its control.
Right. And this applies to mainstream America as well, because look at our public school education system. Depending on what school you go to, it's worse than the education you get from an Amish school, depending on what Amish school you go to. This is not only about, overturning Yoder and making education a federal right, is not only about the Amish. It's not only about other fundamentalist groups. It's also about about secular kids or anybody else, because when you think about our government, the federal government, why are they opposed? Why is the federal government opposed to making education a right for citizens? because it would threaten those in power. The more educated your constituents are, the less easy it becomes to pull the wool over their eyes and get away with corruption. So it's crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see it at the macro level, just even within Jehovah's Witnesses or the Amish, people are in power, are able to be corrupt and to do certain things because the people under them do not know any better and don't have the education to change things. So yeah, it's absolutely true. Well, I've really appreciated you coming back on and letting us know kind of how things have gone for you, and I hope they continue to go well.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me back on, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm hoping that people will be inspired to support you and support whoever's trying to make the world a little bit better.
I'm here with V from all the way back in episode 21. That was December the 1st of 2018. That's when it released. Of course, I'm sure I interviewed you months before that. Usually there's a buffer there. But so it's been over a year now. So after you went back and listened to your story on the podcast, how'd you feel kind of listening to your own story in your own voice?
It was a little weird.
Yeah.
It was weird partly because, honestly, I did not realize what I sounded like. I don't know if that sounds funny, but like...
hearing your own voice?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
Everybody
my voice.
First. Yes. And it's one of the most awkward things, it seems like, for people. Believe me, I have to listen to my own voice a lot in editing this. So I've gotten used to it. But yeah, it's definitely one of those things.
Yeah. But honestly, though, it was a really, I think, cathartic experience. Just being able to to talk about it honestly, and then listening back to realize that I've been through a lot, but I think I am able to talk about it with a lot more grace than I thought I did. I don't know. It was helpful to kind of hear it all laid out without being inside my own head, if that makes sense.
Completely. Yes.
So instead of in my head where it's oh no, am I saying this wrong? Should I say something different? Is this,
Right.
It was instead okay, this is what I said. This is out there. This is okay. This is good. It's good to listen back to it. And I don't know.
Did it help you? It says you said that you listened back and you said, I've been through a lot. Did it help you to give weight to any of the things that you've been through? Were there things that maybe you knew you had been through intellectually, but had never really, but maybe this gave you a different perspective because you're kind of hearing it from a little bit of a distance, and it helped you to give weight to something that you've been through to say, hey, you know what, I am strong. I did go through this, and it was a big deal.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially because my cult was so unique and so small and weird, and it's been harder for me to I don't know if relate is the right word, but own the fact that no, this was a cult. This was messed up. And this, while it wasn't so many of the shunned interviewees, the Jehovah's Witnesses,
Right.
It was still a cult, and it was problematic, and it wasn't my fault,
Right.
Yes, I made a lot of choices while in the cult that I wish I hadn't, but as soon as I knew, as soon as I got out, I changed all of that. And I don't know, it was helpful to just kind of hear how locked down the system was.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, I guess give myself a little more grace for the whole situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope you can give yourself credit for leaving.
Yeah.
When you knew better, you did better. And that's really all anybody can ask from somebody. And I know that people who are Jehovah's Witnesses listened to your story and took something away from it, because it helps to see that other people or people who are ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, you know, it helps to see that other people are going through some of the similar things, and you see the mechanisms that are at work are the same. And it might have a little bit different outcome or some different circumstances involved, but the mechanisms are the same. And, you know, it just helps everybody to, I guess, get more breadth of experience and knowledge in looking at how this affects so many people in so many different ways.
Yeah, I think that's what's interesting is just realizing how vast religious abuse and then narcissistic, like not just personalities, but it feels like power structures, you know, are so pervasive in so many different ways. Like, you know, it's funny. I got my first tattoo a while back.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I love it. And I shared just you know, offhand on one of those on Imgur, which is like Reddit, you know, but pictures. And everyone was, because I just mentioned like, hey, I was in a cult, first tattoo. This is awesome. And everyone, because it went a little viral, were like, oh, you were this, or you were Mormon, you were Jehovah's Witness, like always the same ones. And when I said I wasn't, everyone's like, well, tell me exactly what it was. And I'm like, no, like this is pervasive. But then there were a bunch of people too who were like, oh yeah, I know. Like I was in a weird cult too. Like I was in, you know, and it was just interesting to realize. And some of the people who commented later were like, wow, cults are a much bigger issue than I've realized, you know?
Yes.
And I think just talking about my story, and realizing, you know, being part of the shunned community on Facebook has just helped me realize how big of an issue this is. And I'm not alone. No. And I think that's been one of the most wonderful things, was because my cult was so small. I mean, there were 15 of us that were regular members, and it was just so lonely. And then coming out, it's like no one's going to understand. I don't like, was this even real? I had people who knew us and were like, oh, you weren't in a cult. You're just being dramatic, you know?
Yes.
But actually talking to people and being able to be like, wow, our experiences do line up, even though they were in such different fields. There's still, you know, there's a lot of similarities there, has been really, I don't know, it's been really healing for me to realize like, no, what I went through was real.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
I'm not being dramatic, and I'm allowed to need time to heal from this, you know?
Absolutely.
So
did the episode, when it came out, was there anything unexpected that came from it? Like sometimes people reconnect to people from their past or things like that. Was there anything unexpected that came from it?
Not super unexpected. I didn't share it with very many people. Like I was like, no. Like,
yeah.
But I did end up sharing it with my ex-brother-in-law. And I think I don't know, the way that his and my sister's marriage ended was really a rough thing, but sharing that with him has really helped our relationship, because I mean, he's my brother. My oldest brother died, you know, and he came in right around the same time, and being able to share that with him and then talk about our experiences. And, you know, we're two of the people who, I don't know, we can be really honest with each other about what happened. And I think that having that to share with him, and he said hearing my side of it was really, it really helped, you know? And so I don't know, I thought that was really, it made me happy that just that little bit was something that.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, you never know who else it might help to have the story out there.
Yeah.
So it's been a year, just over a year and a couple months.
Yep.
What has changed in your life since then? Anything big happen? Learn any new lessons? Anything that you'd like to share?
Well, the biggest thing is my husband and I finally moved out of the Pacific Northwest to Wisconsin, which has been really wonderful. It's kind of funny how much, honestly, having 2,000 miles of distance from my family has helped. I thought that the 200 miles between Portland and Seattle was good. Like, that's enough. Nope. It's just been, I don't know, it's been really healthy for us. And we're actively looking for a house and starting the steps to start a family. Like, we're really putting down roots here. And it's been really good and really wonderful too to see. Like, I'm still dealing with a lot of mental health stuff. I still have a lot of things I'm working through, but it's just been really great to see how much moving away and then being in a stable place has helped me, and how healthy I'm getting. And just even my husband's job in Seattle, it was like really on the edge because they had 4 rounds of layoffs. Ooh. While he was there. They went from 150 people to 25 people.
Ooh,
and so being
rough.
in Seattle was, and so the whole time it was like, are we gonna, like, is he gonna get fired? What's gonna happen? And he has kind of a niche job too, so he can't just like get another job easily. So finding the position and like being in a good place has just been so good for us. And I'm just feeling so grateful to, like, you know, going from somewhere we could never leave Portland. You can't move away. Like, you can't do this and you can't do that. And you're a woman, so you shouldn't do this. And then just realizing how much freedom I have, you know, like, we moved away and I can do what I want, you know, like, has been just so wonderful. So
yeah, there is something to be said. You know, you can get mental and emotional distance from toxic situations, but there's something to be said also for the freedom of just the physical distance.
Yeah. It's just nice to be like, oh, I don't need to feel guilty that I don't want to go to this, because I would have to get on a plane. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm sure I think just being in proximity to people that are triggering to you in some way is difficult. Just, I don't know, you just know they're there. And you're in a much freer space now. You have a big buffer zone.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some other changes too. I know when we talked last, I was still in contact with my biological father, and, you know, we kind of healed that relationship. And then he ended up cutting me off kind of out of the blue for no reason. Oh, wow. I forgot his birthday, like, by one day. And I mean, it was only the second birthday I've ever been able to celebrate with him. So it wasn't like something that was on my mind, and it turned into this whole thing, and I got accused of being this bad person. And so that was really painful to go from like having this healing and like, I'm out of the cult, he's out of the cult, to back in like, you know, being blamed for what happened in the cult, because that's kind of what happened. So that was been a not fun change, but at the same time, it's also been kind of nice just to like, okay, well, if he was going to do that, if he was going to act that way, I don't need him in my life.
Yes.
You know, I don't need that kind of toxicity and that kind of, I mean, looking back, I can see how much I did to try to keep him happy and keep my stepmom happy. And like, I mean, I bent over backwards and it wasn't enough. And so
sure.
I don't know.
It can never be enough. I mean, look, for somebody who's going to cut you off because you missed a birthday by one day, that person is likely pretty narcissistic.
Yeah.
And a narcissist has a hole in them that no one can ever fill, and they will take all of your energy from you until you have nothing left, and then they will discard you and find someone else.
And it just, it just sucks because, you know, I was so hopeful that like, okay, maybe the cult narrative of my dad was wrong. Maybe he is this person that I can trust and love, and like, but he's cut off everybody. Like, he won't talk to anyone. He stole my little brother's trust fund for college. Like, it's been crazy. So
yeah, I mean,
that's not fun.
You can, I mean, it's like you can take the person out of the cult, but you can't take the cult out of the person, you know? Necessarily. Sometimes,
some people are just, I don't know.
I mean, there's narcissists or whatever you want to say. Everywhere, and it doesn't exist only in cult situations.
Well, and I think seeing that for me was also kind of in a weird way helpful, because it reminded me that like, even if we hadn't gotten into the cult, my family would have still been messed up.
Oh yeah, like, mine too.
My dad was not a great person. Like, there are reasons we are in the cult.
Yes.
And my dad can say all he wants. Like, he told me that believes he prayed for the cult to happen, that God did it to test him because he asked for it. And that's why it happened. And I was like, whoa, that's a dick move. Like, what a jerk. Why'd you do that?
Not only that, but he and God, they're tight,
That's
like,
my point. It's like,
yeah, it's just the arrogance of thinking that, I just asked God, and of course he made it happen because I'm
he's
me.
gonna, punish all these people.
Yeah,
People are gonna die
That's
because
awful.
I wanted to grow through suffering.
Yes.
Like,
that's
okay, wow. I'll see you later. Never.
Yeah, that's not healthy.
No.
So I'm sorry that it wasn't what you hoped. I think a lot of us end up seeing our parents for what we wish they were and not what they actually are. And just hoping and trying so hard to, a lot of times we end up being kind of codependent or fixers. We're trying to fix them and fix the situation to make it what we need on a level and what we want.
Yeah.
But you just, you can't control other people. And, I always like was it Maya Angelou or someone said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them.
Yes. I love that.
That's a really good thing to do, but it's hard when it's a formative relationship. You don't want to believe that
I know
that this is what it is, but eventually it seems like a lot of times they have a way of showing you in an undeniable way.
Yeah, and it's just kind of one of those things. I feel like, the farther I get away from the initial coming out of the cult, and then the older I get too, it's like, okay, yeah, I went through a lot of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, my family's really messed up in the cult, but the temptation that used to be there of like, well, if the cult hadn't happened, everything would have been great. It's like, no, there's trauma in everyone's lives. There's this country song I love by Casey Musgraves, and she goes, I don't know about the rocks in your shoes, so honey, I'll just do me, and baby, you just do you. And I love that because it's like, yeah, okay, it's easy to think that if I took the rocks out of my shoes, then I would have had a easier like everyone else, but everyone has something. And so, I mean, I think that's also been something, just realizing like being a human can really suck. Like, it's painful. And that's one thing I've been really grateful to you for, is creating like the Shun community and this place where we can share our stories and share our successes and like what we've been through. And so we can like, okay, yeah, life's shitty, but it's better when we do it together,
Yeah.
So,
and it's better to do it free, to free yourself from as much garbage as you can.
No kidding.
It's certainly nicer. And, there's that yin and yang of life. There's the pain and the awfulness, and then there's the beauty and the fun, it's just,
and there's so much beauty too.
Yep.
So,
yeah, absolutely. So is there anything that you'd like to say that I haven't asked about, or any lessons you've learned, or anything you want to share with anybody?
Well, I think the biggest lesson I've been learning lately, especially, is just how to take the good stuff out of the past and leave the rest. I think that's an important thing. Like, okay, I could just stop talking to the members of my family, especially my sisters, that it's painful, or I could figure out how to heal that, if that's what I want. And just trying to like realizing that I have the power to like, okay, I don't have to invest back into this relationship. If it's really toxic, I'm not going to. But like, are there things that I can do to make this healthy again? And I don't know. I don't know if I'm explaining that correctly. But I don't know. For me, just learning how to like live in the gray area of things, as opposed to, I feel like I'm not saying this right, Michael.
So are you saying maybe to like, you're kind of letting it go, but not shutting it down, or leaving some hope maybe that, I mean, there's nothing you can do to change them, it's up to them, but.
Oh, no, but I think what I mean is just like, I think it would be really easy to be like, for me anyway, I know that my situation's a little more complicated because we're all out of the cult technically.
Right.
So, and I know everyone's healing in their own way, but for me, it's been like, okay, how do I want to just shut everything down? Like, walk away, never go back to my family specifically, or do I want to figure out a way to move forward? And so it's been interesting just figuring out, like, I think in my situation that has been unique is like working, I've had a sister especially who has made so many steps to like try to rebuild our relationship and build it from now. And so I don't know. I feel like I lost my way there.
Well, let me ask you, have you had any success?
I have actually. Good. I don't remember if I talked about my relationship with my older sister or not. And like we were in a business together. It went really, really badly. I lost a lot of money. But she ended up actually paying me back part of my initial investment. We've been working really hard to like figure out how we can be friends now. And it's been really wonderful, like it's not easy. But she's acknowledged a lot of the things that she's done, and it's helped.
And I think what needs to be acknowledged there is that unlike most situations we talk about, you and your sister, both of you are coming to the table trying to work this out.
Well, see, that's what I've learned is it can't just be me.
No, it can't just be you. The important thing is that this other person wants to have a better relationship. And so I think that's the important point, is that you're both mutually working on this. And it's interesting, or something that I think needs to be stressed, is that you both got out of a cult and you both want to work on this thing. But that doesn't mean that it's instantly healthy.
Oh, yeah.
And there's work that has to be done, because I think a lot of people think that, if only I could get my mom, my dad, my sister, brother out of the cult of Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever, like if only they would come out, we could be besties again.
Yeah.
No.
Not at all.
There's going to be probably some work that needs to be done, some contrition, some acknowledgments of one another. It's going to take growth on the other person's not going to be where you are because you've been out longer.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of elements to this. Relationships aren't just necessarily instantly healed, and people have to work toward that. And any healthy relationship takes work anyway.
Well, and that was kind of my point of like sorting through the past, is like, it'd be, realizing like, okay, I would love to have a relationship with this person now. Is that possible? Are they going to make the work?
Yeah.
So like being open to it, but also being realistic, like I have some other relationships where I would love to be making more progress, but I've done what I can do.
Yes.
And I can't fix it. I can't, and I think coming from someone who is like, I was the fixer. Like I wanted to fix all the relationships. Yep. I hate having conflict around. Like I will do whatever I can, and that's including what I did in the cult, which was completely lose myself, give up everything that mattered just so that people would be, not even happy, but just like, I don't know. So I think learning to balance that like desire for peace and for relationship with healthy boundaries has been really good, nice. And that's been a big thing that, I can restart these relationships, and sometimes they won't go anywhere at all. Yep. But I also don't necessarily, with the people who are wanting to fix our relationship, I don't have to throw it out just because of the past either.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. Two people who have had a bad past can work through that and come to a beautiful relationship.
Yeah.
In fact, I think sometimes having to work through something like that makes your relationship stronger later.
Yeah, I do too.
Because it's been tested by fire, so to speak. But that's just part of life. But I think it's beautiful that you've got this relationship with your sister that you're working on.
Yeah.
You've tried others, and if it's not working, it's not working. And you can accept that and let that go and move on to the next and try that. And that's all you can do. You can't, and you never know. Eventually they may come around.
That's the thing too, is like time is a great thing. Like I'm not going to count on it, but also just, I know how much I've grown and changed over time. And I also know that I think especially with the rest of my family, me being out of the situation completely has enabled me to grow a lot faster and heal a lot more quickly. And like the way that I've been able to, just dedicate so much time to getting better, which I recognize is such a privilege. Like the fact that, we're financially stable so that I could, spend all the time inpatient that I needed to and like do all of that hard work has been good. And just, giving other people time too. I think that that's been something that I'm learning to be able to live with the discomfort of relationships not being fixed, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And I think that's beautiful. And I'm glad you shared that, because I think that's something a lot of people struggle with. And, who knows, maybe I do another update in a few years and talk to you and find out that there's more things that have changed. Yep. Maybe you have some other relationships back in your life. Maybe some are gone or whatever. You just don't know. But all you can do is what you can do, and you can't control others. So they're going to do what they're going to do.
Yep. And own who you are too. Like that's been one big thing that's been kind of unexpected, is for so long I had to change who I was or hide who I was or, and just realizing like, no, this is me, like, and that's okay. Like I have opinions and I can be a little loud sometimes and get really passionate over stupid things like Game of Thrones. And like, I get to watch Game of Thrones now too, guys, which is super cool. Just don't ask me about the last season.
Oh, you weren't a fan?
Oh my gosh. Don't get me started.
Okay, well, I won't.
I'm so mad about it still. But my point is just being free and having the freedom to be who I am and own that, and also say like, okay, I want this relationship, but if they aren't going to take me as I am, then it's not worth it,
Absolutely.
And like just being able to draw some lines in the sand, not like we used to, which is like, you don't believe all the racist shit we believe? Well, you're gone. But instead, like, no, this is me. I need you to relate to me as a grown up. If you're not going to do that, see you later. Like literally later, like check back in.
Yeah. Get healthy and come back.
Yep, exactly.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to do the update and to share a little bit more about your life and where things have gone and some of the things you've learned. I think it's something that shines a light on what can be learned from everyone's stories. If we all just share, we can help others and help ourselves along the way. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yes, and I'm so happy for you for 50 episodes. That's a huge deal, and just the work that you've done to like connect this community has been so meaningful to me, and I know to so many other people. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, you're very welcome, and I'm happy to do it. So I am here with the one and only Jenny of episode 1. This is actually my wife, and she was the guinea pig for this entire experiment called Shunned. I really didn't know what I was getting into when I started the podcast, and she was gracious enough to be the first person to speak up. So, that's always something I'm going to appreciate, because she was willing to do so. And it was kind of the whole kickoff to what is now over, well, let's see. This is episode 50, and I'm releasing like 10 around this time. So I think we'll get up to about 57, 58, something like that. So, going into almost 60 episodes of this, which is spanned a couple years. So it's been a really cool experience. And so now I get to have numero uno back, the very first person to ever do this. That was on September the 2nd of 2017. And so we'll welcome Jenny back to the podcast, and I'll go ahead and ask Jenny. So how'd you feel after you told your story and listened back to it?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, I've listened to it probably like 4 times since I did it. And, I really hoped that I could listen back to it and just listen as a person who doesn't know this person, and just like, what is this person saying? What is their story? And I haven't really been able to do that, even though my voice sounds really weird to me when I listen to it. But I definitely get, it feels like somebody is sitting on my chest when I listen to it. I get, I just feel the weight of the story, I think. I definitely didn't recognize the weight of the story before I told it. It took me sitting down and really laying it all out in order to feel the impact of what I went through. And then listening back to it, I can get a better grasp, I think, of what, what Jenny faced in my own life. And I'm glad I had that opportunity. I don't think I would have looked at it in such a profound way if I hadn't been helping my husband with episode 1 of his new podcast. So I'm really grateful that ended up happening that way. It was something I wouldn't have experienced otherwise. And I mean, afterwards, like, I slept better at night. I just felt freer. I think it felt like I was putting down something heavy, and I was really glad that I went through that.
Yeah, and I think when you listen to the first episodes, I think it was 6, where I kind of came out from behind the scenes more as the interviewer. I think that being in the first 5, your story stands out alone. So it probably does feel even heavier because there's not some idiot there babbling on to break up the story. No,
it was just me.
Yeah, it was just you, because I was removing my audio from all of the episodes and just letting people's stories stand alone as a monologue. We'll get in probably during my update just a little bit about why that was and how that came about. And I think I talked about it on the podcast as well. But so your story, when you listen back to it, it is just you. For any one of the first 5, it probably was a little bit of a disservice to the first 5. So kudos to all of you who spoke out, because your stories, did stand alone. And I wasn't in the audio with you. So when you listen, it's just you, baby. That's it. There's nobody else.
I think it adds to the heaviness of it.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing to break it up. And, I just wasn't ready at that time to come out from behind the scenes. And I really wasn't trying to make myself a focal point of anything. So I wasn't even sure I wanted to do it. So anyway, so yeah, it was an interesting time. And I'm glad, though, that you get to listen back to it and feel the heaviness, because it's easy for us all to pass these things off. And I think that when you get to look at it from a different perspective, it gives you a different perspective, a little bit more as an outsider, even though it's in your own voice, like you said.
Yeah.
So did the episode coming out help you to reconnect to anybody from your past, or did anything unexpected maybe come from being able to tell your story?
No, I really hoped that it would help me reconnect with somebody from my past, but there honestly weren't a lot of people in my past that I would have been super excited to have reconnected with, at least before I married you. I have definitely reconnected with some of Mike's friends, and that's been kind of cool to get to know them, but from deep in, not necessarily. But I have met so many new people, and that has, I didn't really anticipate that happening. It has just been incredible to make so many new connections and to see people reach out to me and be like, I listened to your story and I enjoyed it, or I got something from it, but also like, a kind of a Me Too thing, like, oh, I was, my life was kind of like that too. And to realize that I've made a small impact on people, that was really cool. I wasn't really anticipating that. I was just, again, I was just helping my husband with his new podcast, but I got so much more out of the experience. And I think it's because of people connecting like that. I'm really glad that was part of it.
And I think your episode has, and I don't know, I haven't sat down and counted, but I think your episode probably has among the most comments on the website, shunpodcast.com. And I think that, some part of that is because you were the first episode of it.
Yeah.
Also your story obviously resonated with people. But also, you've been able to, I know I've told you before, even recently, I'll be like, hey Jenny, you got a new comment on your episode, and it's been years now. And so, can you kind of speak to just, I guess, the staying power of doing something like this? How's it feel when even years later somebody leaves a comment of support?
Yeah, it's like this thing that feels kind of buried in my past. It feels like a longer time, and probably even than it's been. But they'll be like, oh, I had a music teacher that sounded a lot like your music teacher, and I'm thinking back, what did I say about my music teacher? I guess I have to listen to this episode again, And honestly, I kind of want to. It's been a while, and it's just to see that. I don't know. It feels a little bit like a piece of art that you created. Just that it was just telling the truth, telling my story from my perspective, and it still is just kind of floating around in podcast land and helping people. And I'm glad. I'm so glad.
Yeah, I mean, that was 2017. Here we are. We're in 2020 now. It's just amazing. These stories are pretty evergreen. There's not Jehovah's Witnesses change over time. They change policies or they change their beliefs, but a lot of the culture of Jehovah's Witnesses doesn't really change, and the way people are in it and the way they treat each other, a lot of that stuff stays the same. So it's pretty evergreen in that way. Now, speaking of change, things have changed, I know, because we're married in your life since that episode came out. Yeah, I've paid attention. So since September of 2017, has anything big happened in your life? Learn any new lessons that you'd like to share? What's gone on since then?
Well, I kind of thought about this question a little bit because I knew you were going to ask it, and I was trying to think back all the way back to 2017. I got a therapist after that, and I think that kind of helped with some of the feelings that come up when you do go through your story like that. And I talked through a lot of things with that person, but also I think having a therapist helped me realize that like what I was ready for was just to start living my life, to really embrace what was to come. And so I started doing that. And I joined a circus in March of 2019. I think quite a few people know about me already, but I had seen there's a local place in Louisville, just across the river from me, where I can go and I literally joined the circus. I learned trapeze and silks and a giant metal hoop hanging from the ceiling called lyra. And then I've moved on since then to something called swinging ladders, where I swing through the air and do all sorts of impressive looking tricks. And it's been amazing. I absolutely love doing it. Performing was always a dream of mine when I was a kid, and I knew I couldn't do it. I mean, Jehovah's Witnesses weren't going to let me perform. They weren't going to let me take that kind of time for something that I was just interested in. And now I can do that. I have the time, and I have a life where I can say, this is what I want to do with it. And being able to spend it doing fun and cool things with my body, and learning to be more musicality. Also the community of circus people, circus freaks as they are called. We just learning to meet all these people and having something in common with them it's been so cool to help build up some friendships with people locally. I actually will be doing my first my first performance in March of 2020, and I'm very excited about that. I also had another big change happen, and that was that I began cleaning solo in August of 2019.
Yeah, you had to fire your partner, didn't you?
I did have to fire my partner. Yes.
He couldn't keep up anymore.
He was falling apart at the seams,
Yeah.
and you needed that break. And but learning how to go do this business on my own has really helped me grow a ton. Just driving to work every day by myself. You used to always do the driving, so now it's up to me. I have to find my way to these places, and I wasn't used to driving that much, and pay attention to when the car needs gas, and what's that funny noise? I should probably make sure I know what that noise is, and all of those things. Dealing with clients and cleaning the areas that you used to clean. All of that has changed for me, and it was a big adjustment. But I would say that in the end, as I've had several months now to adjust to it, I'm finding that it's helping me grow as a person so much more, and I'm enjoying that. I like that piece of it.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's cool to see you grow too. I get to enjoy these things as well, and I think that's something that anybody out there listening who has left Jehovah's Witnesses and found a new life, as you're going through this new life, the people who are around you, if there are any in your life who were around you when you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses, they get to see you change and grow. And that's a beautiful thing. And then those who maybe were never around you then, who are in your new life, they just get to meet this awesome person. And so there's a lot of winning done there for everyone involved when you kind of grab life by the horns and decide to go for it and just do what it is that you wanted to do for all those years. Jehovah's Witnesses stole a lot from us. And there are some things that maybe we can't necessarily get back. That's just reality. But for most of us, there are a lot of things that we can still have a second chance at getting and putting into our lives. Maybe if it's not in the exact way that we would have wanted it when we were younger or something, we can still have it in some way. And so it's important to find those things. I'm glad that you've been able to find some of those things for yourself. So, final question. Is there anything you'd like to say that I haven't asked about? Got any words of wisdom to share or anything?
I have learned one really big lesson, and that's what I'll share. And that is, so we have a saying. I've been using it a lot in circus because there's a lot of scary things you try in circus. It is do the scary thing until it's boring. I've said that about so many different things, and it works for when I was trying to learn the flying back balance on the swinging ladders. That was a scary thing. But now I've done it several times and it's not scary anymore. And after I've done it several more times, it will probably get kind of boring. But it works just as well for going to a party where you barely know one person and you're not sure if they're going to like you or if it's going to be like, if there's going to be things you didn't anticipate or, that's a scary thing. And once you've done it a few times, you're like, wait, no, I've been here before. I know how to do this, and it's not as scary. And then later on, you're like, oh yeah, it's a party. I'll show up. And it's not. It really takes away the scary, and instead, it starts giving you confidence because that you can say, I know, I've been here. I've had this experience before, and I have. I lived the first section of my life. We're not going to talk about how many years it was. But I lived the first section of my life being scared of so many things and being tentative and not really wanting to try or not wanting people to know what I liked. And I don't have to live that way anymore. And it's been, It's been an amazing transformation. I will call it. It feels like big words, but I think they apply. It's been an amazing transformation to start doing things that I'm interested in, to start being more vulnerable, and to try things. I don't have to be committed to anything. I can just try it. And I have found so many more things that I like. And I have found also that people respond to me better because they see that I'm just trying to have some fun and that I am open to learning new things. So that road to more confidence has been a lot more fun than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be a lot more scary, and it's been a lot more fun.
Yeah, the anxiety about things is almost always worse than the actual thing.
Yes.
Whatever it is in life, the anxiety, your brain, it's amazing how your brain can come up with all kinds of insane ways that a thing could go wrong. If only it could do the opposite and come up with all these ways that it could go right, where you would actually be a little more positive going in. That's what our brain does. But especially coming from an isolated community like we did, where you didn't have a lot of experiences, so everything is intimidating. And I think that's a beautiful way to end it, though. Do the scary thing until it's boring. I think that's a great piece of advice. So I appreciate you coming back all the way from the other room and recording with me again. And we'll put this up with all the other updates, and I'm sure that people will enjoy hearing again from the very first person to ever do one of the Shunned episodes. So thank you for that.
Thanks. So I get the chance to be in the driver's seat right now, and I will be interviewing my husband, Michael Shimwell. He actually started his story on This JW Life, which was the first episode aired on June 18th of 2017. And after telling his story, there was such demand for more stories that he started creating Shunned Podcast and moved on from there. But we are going to find out what he has been up to now. So, Mike, how did you feel after telling your story and listening back to it?
It's funny because telling my story and listening back to it takes a lot longer than anybody else because mine was a 9-part series. And it wasn't just my story, but I told it in such a way as to help, hopefully, outsiders to maybe understand, because when I sat down to make this JW Life, I didn't anticipate any of what came. I was just doing it hoping that maybe some people in my life, some family members maybe, who didn't understand why we were so aloof for so long. I was hoping that maybe some of the people who were starting to become my new friends on the outside, maybe some of them would listen and kind of understand who I was. So when I listen back to this JW Life, which I've done now, I think I've listened to the whole thing through 2 more times after initially doing it. It's something that I've said in these updates with other people. I've said that other people get from it. It's what I got from it as well, and that is that it gave me perspective. I always thought I was normal growing up. I saw everything through the lens of what I went through. And that is your normal when you grow up in it. Whatever it is that you experience growing up is your normal. So it's difficult to see it in a different way. But when I got to listen back to it, I was like, yeah, that's kind of fucked up. I didn't really understand what it was and how much had impacted me. And so I listened back to it. So I would say that for me, that's what I got out of listening back to it, was just, Yeah, this was real, and this was my life, and I thought it was normal, and it wasn't. It was abusive, and I deserved better than that. And it wasn't just. It wasn't just. I think, looking at it internally myself, it was just a string of events. But I started to see the patterns and such as I told it, and as I listened back to it, some of the ways that things went down, or the way I was treated, or the way people reacted or acted. I started to notice things by listening to it, and it really helped me to. I mean, telling that helped me in so many ways. Yeah, I'm just going to leave it there because I think I might touch on something in a later question. So I'll just leave it there.
Well, then let's move on to a later question.
All right.
Did the episode coming out help you to reconnect to anyone from your past, or did something come out of it in some other unexpected way?
Well, it's honestly, so much has happened since then. It's been kind of a whirlwind that it's not easy to remember everything that happened thereafter. But, I had family members who reached out and were taken aback because they had no idea what our life was really like. Being kind of secluded from them and isolated for all those years. I had shout out to Art, if he's listening, friend Art from back in the day. We pioneered together for a little bit when I was, I don't remember how old he was, but I was 18, 19. And he apparently had been listening to the podcast and was like, hey, I know that guy. And so he reached out to me, and that was really cool. He said he always knew I would wake up at some point because I always called out the bullshit and things, and I was that person. But, it just took me a long time to get to it with Jehovah's Witnesses. So that was really cool to reconnect with him. Of course, I've reconnected with a ton of people through this entire journey, being this JW Life and Shunned. Reconnected with quite a few people from my past because I'm glad to say that a lot of the people that I grew up with are out. And so that's been really cool. And I'm really happy for all those people that they found freedom too. As far as anything, I guess, unexpected, that was all unexpected, but that was reconnection. I thought when I did this JW Life, I would just say that my highest dream was maybe that it would get 500 downloads. I don't know where 500 came from, but that's just, that was my wildest imagination. I thought, there's ended up being 10 episodes technically, because the last one kind of moved into this next phase with Shunned. But, I figure, 50 people, 10 episodes. Yeah, that would probably be a dream come true if 50 people listen to it and listen to the whole thing. And I found that there were, we had cleaning clients at the time who were listening to it and listening to my story as I was putting them out. I had people reaching out to me, asking advice, or just saying, hey, me too. I lived that life too. And, here we are now between this JW Life and Shunned, both in individual downloads of the podcasts and listens on YouTube and such. I don't know, at last count, a month or two ago, I think, it was up over 175,000. And, I never would have anticipated, to go from 500 to 175,000 times somebody has listened to me in some respect. And when I say me, I also mean the people now who are on Shunned. I just never anticipated that. And I never thought that anything like that would happen as far as how many people listen to it. And let me just say that, Shunned obviously is what I do now, but there's still oftentimes, most of the time, over 1,000 individual downloads of this JW Life each month. I don't advertise it. I don't really say much about it. And I think the momentum that it gained, the subject matter, people leaving reviews, things like that, they help it to be found. And this JW Life has helped so many people and is continuing to do so. To know that my story is still being listened to at a clip of 1,000 downloads a month individually is just amazing. I just never would have anticipated that. And then, of course, when we talk about what's changed in my life, there's a lot of other things that have come from this journey I never anticipated.
Well, and let's talk about that. What has changed in your life since that episode came out in 2017? Anything big? Learning any new lessons that you'd like to share?
Yeah, a lot of big things have happened.
One or two?
Yeah, a whole lot. I'll say that, what some of the big things that have happened. I was able to speak at the When Rights and Religions Collide conference in New York City in 2019. That was amazing to be able to get up on stage and tell some of my story in a group of people from different communities. This just wasn't a bunch of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses getting together. This was people from the Orthodox Jewish community, Islam, people from Quiverful, Amish, Mennonite, just a lot of different organizations were represented there. People who had been Catholic and who had left for some reason, and being able to talk in a group like that was amazing. It was cathartic, and it was just cool to be a part of something like that. I got to through all the emails and such I get, I've been helping people for a couple years now. And so I got certified as a life coach. I'm an IACC certified coach. And I did that because I wanted a framework, an outside framework, not just my own, but something that I could work within to coach people, to help people to live better lives. I was pretty much doing that already, but it was great to have a framework to attach it to. And because I've done that, I've been able to start the Shunned Recovery Project. And, I'm on streaming video with people, holding these group recovery sessions. Because I do that, and ICSA, the International Cultic Studies Association, has taken an interest in me, I was able to do a live streaming event as a coach, helping therapists to better understand their clients who were impacted by Jehovah's Witnesses, and also helping the former Jehovah's Witnesses, if they watched that, to be able to identify some things maybe in their own lives, because I was talking about the patterns that I see in working with people, and kind of some of the struggles, and also some of the successes, some of the ways people have found help, and so that was an honor. I didn't. Now let's get back to when I started this JW Life. I never started this JW Life to be a quote activist. I started this JW Life because I had a lot of people telling me I should write a book. I'm not really a reader. I read quote audiobooks. I'm an audio learner, and so I wanted to do a podcast. It had always kind of been a dream of mine anyway. I thought it would be cool, but I was struggling still with a lot of social anxiety, and I thought that pushing myself to go down in my basement alone with a laptop and a cheap headset and to put my story out there in my own book of sorts, let's say, my own little audio book of sorts as a podcast, and to be vulnerable in that way, it just felt like the next natural step. And I was terrified. And I mean, yeah, I was terrified. I was terrified when I went down there to record it. I was even more terrified, I think, when I hit that button to release the audio to the world. And, but I knew, for a lot of us, happiness and what we want lies on the other side of our comfort zone. And I knew I was going to have to push myself if I wanted something more and better in my life. And so I did. And so, yeah, it's definitely been a ride. I hear from people all over the world. I've made friends with people all over the world. I've had people from Australia stop by my house and actually did a live podcast interview with them and got to meet this wonderful lady who's a former Jehovah's Witness and her aunt who was never one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And I mean, you're talking to a person. I don't know that I've ever really met many people from other countries, especially had them in my home. And that was an amazing experience. I've been able to travel and kind of locally, I guess, and meet some people who have been on the podcast, and that's been amazing. I've had people who were coming to the Louisville area who sent me a message and let me know, and we got to meet and break bread, and that was amazing. And so there's been so many amazing things that have come from all of this, and it all revolves around people. I started this in the beginning because I wanted to help other people understand what I went through. And I tried to make it in a way that maybe people who were never Jehovah's Witnesses could understand. And I hope that it would help some people out there. And so it's always been about people. And so it's been beautiful to have so many people reach out to me and such through this experience. With that said, you alluded to the reality that in August of 2019, I officially left the cleaning business that, was as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's what I always did. And I really did truly enjoy it. And I left because I have a degenerative disc disorder. I think it's my L4 and my L5 are desiccated, which means they're drying out. And so the discs aren't really lubricated, and will eventually start to lose height. And then I will have, bone on bone at some point. And then I also have arthritis in at least one facet joint. I'm lucky. I don't walk around or sit around necessarily in pain all day, every day, like some people do. I do get weird nerve issues where I get tingling or numbness or burning down my leg or my hip, different areas. But it kept me from cleaning because, and I guess in order to protect the joints, my muscles will spasm at times. And as it gets exhausted over a day of cleaning, I'm usually good the first house. And by house number 2, anytime I try to shift my weight or get up or move up and down, I end up on the floor because of a back spasm, having to release it. So, it just got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I worked with it for a year or over a year, trying to push through, hoping that it would go away. It just got worse. And then eventually got an MRI and an official diagnosis, and it is what it is. So, that was hard. That was a very, very difficult thing. I used it to try to propel my activism more. And so if I was going to talk about a lesson that I learned, activism is hard. And I'm not saying that for myself for some sort of pity party. But I'm saying this out of respect for everyone else that does it as well. For the people who are doing YouTube videos and podcasts and whatever it is they're doing out there. It's hard. Blogging, writing books. You get people who reach out to you. And so what I'm about to say here, I'm not saying I don't want to guilt anyone or shame anyone for this. And what I'm afraid of, because I know how people are, people are going to feel this way. People are going to say, well, I don't want to be a bother, because we were made to feel like we didn't bring anything to the table, and we were never good enough and just a problem as Jehovah's Witnesses. But I can, in my life, I can be sitting at dinner and have someone email me or hit me up on Messenger with a tale of their rape or molestation, or telling me that they're suicidal, or whatever the case may be. And so, that is one of those realities that I think a lot of us who are activists deal with. There is an emotional toll that comes with all of it. And so, really I guess why I'm saying it is support the people who are doing these things, whether it's me or somebody else. I think that one of the lessons that I've learned is that activism is hard, and that I also love it, which I'll probably talk about in a minute. But because I get to help people, people keeping their stories in, not only do you not get to get it out of yourself by telling somebody, but you also deprive that other person of the ability to be a help to you. And those of us who are doing this for people, which again is why I did this in the first place, was to help people. If you're doing it for that reason, you want to help, and I want to help. And that's why I do all this stuff, because I want to help. I love it. I get so many beautiful messages from people, and a lot of those even come from helping people work through their suicidal ideations, the trauma that they've gone through, whatever the case may be. But, if you have a favorite activist out there, support them. Support them by leaving comments on their work. Support them by leaving reviews on their work so that it can be seen. Support them financially, because this takes a tremendous amount of time and energy and money to do this, to buy all these things so that we can do what we do. And I had a goal in 2019 to start a nonprofit, and that's the only goal that I missed in 2019. And I felt really good about hitting all the others, but I've learned a lot about what it takes to run a nonprofit, and it's very difficult, and it requires a lot of financial support. And, we in the ex-Jehovah's Witness community aren't blessed like some communities where they have a lot of college graduates and where education was promoted, and maybe they have people who've gone on to do big things, and they may have some wealthy donors that really help make a lot of things go. And, we just don't really have a lot of that in our community. So, I wasn't able to figure out how to start this. It's a whole thing. Lessons, my goodness. There's a nonprofit that's out there that you support them, because goodness, it's a lot of work. And I mean, it's literally starting a corporation with a board and all the things that come along with that, coming up with a marketing plan. You have to have a marketing plan that fits what people are willing to donate to, because, it's, it's very difficult. So I've learned a lot through this whole process about what activism is, what it means for the activists, what it means if we want nice things as a community, what it means for the people who are reaching back out to me. I've learned a lot about that, and it's been an amazing experience. So I'll leave that there.
Yeah, I have watched it all happen, and it's really been cool to be a bystander and see you do what you've done. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about that I haven't asked about?
I think if I was going to say one more thing, I would just want to thank everybody that does support what I do. And even if you don't support what I do in certain ways, whatever, if you support it by sending me an email. I mean, when I get an email and someone says, hey, you know, I've been listening to your podcast and it's so amazing to know that I'm not alone. Or when someone, I struggle to say this because because I don't want to. So I've had to learn to appreciate the nice things that people say to me, because as one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you're never, you've got this tall poppy syndrome. You're never supposed to be the guy who stands out. You don't want to take pride in what you do, so I had to learn to accept the good things that were said about me and what I do. So yeah, I'll say I'm damn proud that I get messages from people who say, I listened to your work and it saved my life. Or I listened to your work and, I'm free now. I've disassociated, or I faded, or, maybe I was able to get my spouse, to listen as well and to question. And, it's a really amazing thing to get those messages. That's a way to support. If something has helped you, let somebody know that it helped you. And when I see somebody, it always makes me feel good if I see somebody went on the XJW Reddit or somewhere else, some other group, and was like, yeah, there's this podcast and it's really cool and it really helped me. Word of mouth is like the highest compliment you can get. And when people start talking about what you've done or what you've done for them, even as a coach, when I've helped people and they've told other people about me, that's an amazing feeling. And again, that all comes down to it's about people. And so the messages that I get from people are amazing. And if you're one of those people who sends me one of those messages telling me, the things that have happened in your life, while I will have to say, that the part of activism is sometimes getting those at inconvenient times. And some of that's on me to set boundaries as to when I look at those things. That's my own struggle, and that's on me. It gives me an opportunity to help. And because that's the reason that I started all of this, I appreciate it. I love that I get to help people. I love that I get to see people's lives change and that I get to see people be happy. So, that's why I personally, so many people are so surprised when they email me and they literally get a personal email, usually within 24, 48 hours from me, if not immediately. I do that. I've had many people offer to help me answer my emails, and I appreciate those offers. And maybe someday I won't be able to, but I will kind of regret that day because I did this to help people, and it's that connection. And so being able to respond to people instantly is an amazing thing. I'm so appreciative that I get to respond to people and make connections. It fuels me to be able to do so. So I guess that's just what I would say, is just thank you for everybody who has participated in some way, to all the beautiful people that are courageous enough to stand up and say, I want my story to be heard. I want it on record. I want to let people know what Jehovah's Witnesses or any of these other groups are doing. I know you're nervous when you tell your story and we talk about it. But I love hearing that you telling your story not only is helping others, because, I see the comments that are left, but I love it when you tell me that it's helped you too. And, that's why I sit here for hours listening to people's stories, creating these podcasts and doing everything that I do, because all those years knocking on doors, being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I never helped anybody. I always thought it would be cool to help somebody, but I never helped anybody. And, if I had helped someone coming to the quote truth, I wouldn't have been helping them. So, now I actually get to help people, and that's what I like to do. So it's been a beautiful experience, whether it's through the podcast or coaching or videos or just anything that I've done, a comment that I leave on Facebook in the Facebook group that helps somebody. Being able to, I guess, see the fruitage of your labor, to be able to help, to say something, a kind word to someone or something that makes a difference in somebody's life, helps them to move on towards something better. That's the best feeling in the world. And so I'm just happy that I get to do that.
Well, I think I can confidently speak for everyone when I say that I'm so glad that I have been able to be along with you on this ride, and we've been able to watch you go for big things and get big things done. It's been really cool to be along there with you.
Yeah.
And I am going to end this episode by saying the famous last words: love others, do no harm, and go be happy.
We'll curse God